Hey, 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 here we are for another episode of Gaia-logues. So today I want to talk about something forbidden. It's called Forbidden Technologies, and it's a new series on the Gaia platform. And they do have a few documentaries and a few different series that look at sort of the way things are suppressed, or the way things are, quashed by the powers that be. And this particular series called Forbidden Technologies, I think, gives a really nice overview of some individual examples. So right now, and I think there's a new episode every Friday. Right now, there's 3 episodes out at the time of me recording this. The first 2 episodes are about a researcher whose name was Royal Rife. And actually, before I get into that, let me play you the trailer. You can see the trailer. Then I'll talk a little bit about the Royal Rife first 2 episodes, and then I definitely want to finish up talking about Nikola Tesla. So here is the trailer.
Tom Ogle drove 200 miles on only 2 gallons of gasoline.
Royal Raymond Rife claimed he could heal cancer using sound frequencies.
Nikola Tesla built Wardenclyffe Tower, hoping that it would power the world for free.
John not only discovered free energy, he also discovered a way of propelling a craft into space that wouldn't necessarily need fuel.
Stan said he could take tap water, pour it into the gas tank, and run his dune buggy.
Wilhelm Reich was so far ahead of the medical industry that they destroyed him.
It is a deliberate campaign of disinformation to discredit the work that he had done years earlier.
The money people do not want this out because it disrupts their business model and their almighty dollar, probably more than $2 quadrillion in assets. If we can get this done right, then you're going to have a world where there'll be no poverty and no pollution.
All of these inventors are working in the area of what's described as forbidden science. But actually, what they're dealing with is the most sacred science. If we can tap into that sacred science, it leads to the total freedom of humanity. It ultimately leads to our ascension to other worlds, possibly even to other dimensions.
Okay, so that's the trailer for the whole series. And so let's talk a little bit about Royal Rife. So Royal Rife was, see if I can get the details right. So I don't remember if he started out as a medical doctor or if he started out as a researcher, but his main contribution at the very early stages was that he studied optics and lenses, and he was one of the people that developed a microscope that was able to see things that prior to that were considered invisible. And I want to use that word invisible because one of the things that we learn in our shamanic teaching is that there are things that happen in the invisible world that some people are able to see and other people are not able to see. And so I think that with technology, when it gets advanced enough, it sort of finally catches up to the ones that we call shamans or magic or whatever. So in this microscope that he developed, he also, at the same time, developed in his laboratory this ability to somehow, I have no idea how this works, but somehow with, I think it was sound frequency or light frequency or both, he was able to, in a non-invasive way, just sort of zap or eliminate cells that were causing cancer. And I think there was one other, I think it might have been tuberculosis or one of the other diseases that was so rampant back at the early part of the 20th century. So he was able to, through this research, have this, really amazing way to just use energy and sound frequency for healing, which some people are finally bringing into our healing practices now. But here's what happened. So at first, his medical community comrades were so excited because they looked at his invention and his technology and his research as just possibly really revolutionizing health and wellness and medicine in ways that would make it sort of like they were sort of using these terms of like, oh, we're going to do away with disease. Like this technology is going to do away with disease. So, of course, what happens? What happens is the ones who had invested so much of their money in the skill of being a medical physician, which primarily at the time was relying on invasive procedures like cutting people open, that training, which still is, some of the most expensive training you can get, to be a doctor or a lawyer are two of the most expensive degrees you can get. And so there were folks in power enough with enough money and enough clout that saw, oh, this is going to be bad for my business model because I can't make as much money off of cutting people open and taking out their diseases the way medicine has been in Western medicine up to now. So they do have some people who are, like I think there's a guy in Colorado who's got an alternative wellness center where he has been able to use some sort of an adaptation of this kind of technology that Royal Rife developed. But still, it was the way that technology was suppressed simply in the interest of maintaining economic power over the situation. To me, I used to think it was so mind-blowing, and now it just is so not surprising to me anymore. And the reason I bring this up is because I think that once we start to realize how power is used to limit us, we can start to use our creativity and our imaginations and our curiosity to find ways to work around that. And one of the ways, there's a couple of advocates that are in this series, and I've seen them in other Gaia documentaries, where there's this one guy who's advocating rather than risking having one's research and patents purchased and shelved forever or bought up and quashed or suppressed, to make it public open source. So that when any of these kinds of technologies are discovered, which can be so radically inclusive of everyone for very little personal investment, it just blows my mind why we're not already doing it, which of course brings me to Nikola Tesla. And somebody please correct me if I'm wrong or find a source. In the documentary, they talk about Tesla as being Serbian, but when I was in Croatia and Serbia and I went to the Tesla Museum in Croatia, I could have sworn that the Croatians were saying he's one of ours, and I never saw him mentioned in Serbia, but I could be wrong, so if you know and you have a source, please put it in the comments. So Tesla was just one of those people who had such an incredible imagination and such an incredible mind. One of the things they talked about in the documentary was how he would keep a notebook by his bed, and there would be times when he would wake up in the morning and he would just see these elaborate drawings of some technology that he was going to be bringing into existence. So then people are questioning, are angels or divine beings talking to him in his dreams? Is this coming from some other dimension in his dreams? And where do we get our imaginations and our creativity? Is it divinely sourced? Is it some other thing? Those kinds of details I'm not that interested in parsing out, but I do want to just encourage everyone not to assume that that's only going to happen by super special, amazing people. I mean, granted, he certainly was certifiably a genius, but I think that the more we say, oh, that person's so great, that person's so great, that person's so great, and we sort of ignore or excuse what our own abilities are, we're limiting what we can do both individually and collectively. Not everybody's going to be a Tesla. People are going to have skills in other areas. But the story that fascinated me most from this series, especially in the episode 3 about Tesla, was I didn't realize, so back in, I guess it would have been the early 1900s, he was in upstate New York, and he was instrumental in developing the Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York power. I think it might have been the first hydroelectric power generator in North America. I think that is how I remember them saying it in the documentary. And what they were talking about that was his sort of primary purpose in doing that hydroelectric project at the Niagara Falls location was that this was an opportunity to harness the power of nature that already exists without destroying anything. Because they compared that to the combustible engine, which requires us to burn up and destroy something, some substance, in order to get power out of it to make our cars go forward, right? And so Tesla was saying, why do we have to be destructive in order to create? Why not find ways to tap into power and energy that already exists? And this is where I think when those of us who have trained in shamanic arts, those of us who work with energy healing at all, and if you listen to anybody who's talking about this at all, these energies are around us at all times. And it demonstrates to me so clearly how the scarcity mindset comes from that capitalist system, because one of the things that JP Morgan said to Tesla is if it cannot have a meter on it for him to make money off of it, it is not going to happen. Because Tesla's idea was to create these big towers to just provide free energy broadcast to the world to whoever needs it. A much more egalitarian system rather than us having to purchase our electricity or purchase our energy on a metered monthly basis. And of course, capitalists can't have that happening. If you can't make a profit off it, what's the point? So I guess really this is sort of my invitation to anyone who's listening who actually works in any of these areas where maybe you do research, maybe you're a scientist, maybe you're an academic, maybe you have access to cutting edge technology and you want to make sure that it doesn't get quashed or suppressed. Find ways to get it out there so that it doesn't have to go through a lot of those the patent processes. If you can get the research out there earlier than whatever the patent process is, to make these kinds of technologies more readily available, more openly available, so that we can soon, please soon, reduce our dependence on non-sustainable fuels. So that's my topic for today. I think I talked too fast. This one was a little bit short. But I urge you, if you haven't already signed up for Gaia, please do so on my affiliate link, which is going to be in the comments, so that we can stimulate our dialogue about how to make better, more beautiful, more compassionate, more egalitarian, more openly available, more sustainable structures and civilizations for ourselves and for future generations. That's my call to us, to all of us, today and in this new year and in all future years. So check it out, Forbidden Technologies. Cheers.